Monday night. Monday night. What's up, everybody? Monday night. Coming off of a Packers loss. It's all good. It's all good. I'm sure we will dive into how everybody's feeling. But what are you going to do? It was a great season. It was a great season. Had to come to an end. Had to come to an end. Didn't have to come to an end. It came to an end. We'll see if anybody even wants to chat it up on this Monday after a Packers defeat in the playoffs. I just got one of you in here. It's Trayvon, the lone wolf. Go Pack Go. What an amazing season, even after a disappointing loss. That is the outlook that we definitely have to have after what transpired yesterday. Obviously not a performance that a lot of us were happy about. I am of the mantra, though. I mean, it was 27-0 at halftime. You could kind of just it was an easier way to take it, in my opinion. In my opinion, I'll take it that way versus what happened in Seattle back in 2014 versus what happened if it was like a really close game and we lost on a game-losing field goal or a Minnesota Miracle type of situation. Obviously not a fun way to go. I mean, not fun to lose by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, great season. I got roasted. Trevon says he got roasted by every Niners fan I know. I live in our. Okay, so yeah, so you're right in the heart of Niners Nation over there, and yeah, I'm sorry, man. Sorry you had to live through that. It just wasn't you, though. If it was anything like me, I had Facebook friends who were Bears fans and Vikings fans. They all came out of the woodwork last night at about 7:30. I think it was a little bit after halftime, and everybody just decided to start talking shit. And it's like they waited all season just for that one moment to try and let it lay on. So it wasn't just you. I'm sure you were getting more in person, but they came out of the woodwork 100%. King Smooth finally showed up on time. What's up, man? Thanks for tuning in. Cried myself to sleep last night. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you didn't cry yourself. I mean, it's been kind of reported in the news. I mean, it's one of the hardest things for me to do. I'm sure you guys can relate to an extent, but like, you live, breathe, and die the Packers news, and you love watching the media, and that all last week, they were talking about Packers, Niners. You had a lot of Packers coverage. For me personally, I'm on Packers.com. I'm on their YouTube channel, just soaking up as much information as I can and what people are saying. But I had to put myself through watching some stuff last night after the game, watching the post-game interviews. I watched all the locker room interviews last night, and it's tough. It's tough to do, and you see the emotions and we'll get to that here, I'm sure, at some point. Just the emotions on these guys, and they felt like that there's something special about this season, that nothing was going to essentially stop them. But you have to soak all that stuff up, and I didn't cry myself asleep. I ended up passing out, though. I passed out on the couch last night, 100%. It was actually pretty. But then you wake up. You know how you wake up the next day and you're like, man, did I dream that? Was that even real? I mean, is it over? Is it really over? So I'm right there with you. I think this is going to turn into like an emotional cleansing session real quick here. Big B, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, my boy Big B. You've been depressed all day today. You'll get through it. We'll get through it. The needle's pointing up. The future is very bright for the Green Bay Packers. Coming off that first season with a rookie coach. I think we saw something out of Aaron Rodgers the last two games that just proves once again that he still has what it takes to be a starter and still has what he can. I mean, he can do what he wants to do. His career is far from over, is what I'm trying to say. And I think Devontae Adams is going to get better. I think Jones is going to get better. I think our young secondary is going to improve. Definitely, the needle's definitely pointing up for the Packers team. So I agree with Rusty there. The next year will be better, 100%. I'm going to be right on that, calling it early that the Packers are going to be Super Bowl favorites next year, 100%. Number one Pack says, I feel sick to my stomach after watching this effort by my Packers. So let's recap it. I mean, we're not getting a ton of people in this stream. Only 60 of you guys in here so far. I think maybe a lot of people maybe they've given up. Maybe they just don't want to talk about it. Maybe they just want to forget that it ever happened. But I look at the game a little bit. Here's my perspective on it, right? So the game obviously got away from us, but I don't really feel. I feel like if we were to play these guys tomorrow, that the outcome would be different. Yes, they spanked our asses essentially 2 times this season at San Francisco, but game starts out, both teams essentially, 3 and out by San Francisco. Packers have 5 plays. They ended up punting it. San Francisco finally gets a touchdown on the run game. And it kind of goes into a little bit of what are the Packers doing on offense, trying to figure it out, whatnot. So by the time they're down 17-0, Green Bay finally puts themselves a drive together. 6 play, 50 yards. They had a 23-yard pass to Jay Kumro. Aaron Jones had a combined 27 rushing yards throughout that. And then, of course, the fumble happens on the snap on the San Francisco 25-yard line. So there's an instance where that just hasn't happened all season and absolutely kills any chance of momentum moving in the other way. Because I felt like our offense was going to be able to move the ball. But then there were things that kept popping up that just stalled our drives and dug us into a deeper and deeper hole. So we fumble it there. San Francisco goes down, scores a field goal. They go up 20-0. And then there's, a minute 51 left in the second half, and we're thinking, okay, at least I'm thinking this. You got Aaron Rodgers in the 2-minute drill, go down, score a touchdown. You get the ball coming out of halftime. It could essentially be a 14-20 game, to start the third quarter or to, a little bit into the third quarter. But a little bit of miscommunication by Geronimo Allison and Aaron Rodgers. That turns into an interception. And then sure as shit, San Francisco goes down and scores another touchdown. At that point, it just kind of seemed like, okay, 27 points. That is a tough one to overcome. So like I said, at halftime, I don't know about you guys, but at halftime it just kind of felt like, man, we let it slip. It's gotten away from us. Maybe we're about to witness the greatest comeback of Green Bay history. So I was kind of in a, drunken daze, I guess you could say, saying, let's just see what happens. I didn't really, I figured, we got Aaron Rodgers, you got the Packers offense. This is a team that has surprised me in a lot of different ways this season. Let's see what happens. So they come out, they do 11 play drives, 75 yards, 7-27, got momentum. It was a really long drive though. It was a 6-minute drive to start that third quarter. San Francisco, they got the ball with 8:40 left to go in the third quarter, and you're like, God, it seems like it took a long time. And then San Francisco did exactly what they did last night. What they did last night was exactly what they did in Week 12. So we come out of halftime, we score a touchdown. And then San Francisco answered with a 7-play, 79-yard touchdown, and that was it right there. That was the dagger in my mind. Down 34-7, we got the ball back with 4:50 left in the third quarter. It was just like way too many points that we had to score in such a little amount of time. So like I said, the Packers' second half performance: touchdown. And then an interception, which was just Rodgers at that point throwing up just a deep bomb because we were running out of time. So I kind of put that one off to the side. But they got things going in the second half. They started way too slow. Things really snowballed out of their control with a couple of missteps as far as the butt fumble at the snap. And they just couldn't keep themselves close enough in it to really let things kind of come to fruition in the second half. So obviously disappointed, but I liked what I saw of that offense. This is going to be something that obviously in the offseason kind of turns around. We're going to add some pieces in, hopefully in our offensive when it comes to the wide receiving group. And I think another year with Rodgers and all these guys in LaFleur's system, they're going to go back and look and see what some of their tendencies were, some of their mistakes were. I think the needle's definitely pointing up. The fact that they were able to put all this together in essentially 7-8 months to put this install together and make a deep playoff run like they did has to give you some semblance of relief and hope for the future. It's not like the 2016 season when they got blown out by Atlanta Falcons, and then you just kind of felt like that was a completely different vibe because we had to run the table to get to that point. We were 4-6, ran the table, made it to the NFC Championship. That was just a hot streak that we got on, but you just kind of felt like something was wrong. And then sure enough, we had two losing seasons back to back. McCarthy gets fired. the feeling wasn't good at that point. But at this particular point in the Packers organization, I have to feel good about what is ahead of us 100%. So next year will be better. That says Rusty. I don't want our season to end. Well, at least you don't have to. I mean, there's only one more game. That's another way that I look at this. I'm trying to keep you guys up. I don't want this to be a bummer of an episode. But there's a lot of things that we need to discuss as far as the future of this team. There's a lot of free agents coming onto the market. There's team needs that that definitely needs to be addressed, whether it's through free agency or through the draft. It was a great stepping stone. The season is to an end, but it's going to be at an end for every single team in less than 2 weeks, and there will only be one victor. So you can't really. It's much better than the season being over in mid-November or the first week of December like it was last year, because that was the longest off season of my life. So yeah, season's over, but it'll get better. Number one Pack says, LOL, I was just like that. I woke up in the morning like, did this really happen? Did we really lose? Yes, that's how I handle every playoff loss. The next morning, I have to pinch myself just to see if reality is real. There's a deep thought for you. It's like we're living in the Matrix. Like we're living in the Matrix. I'm just reading Big B's comment. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry your day was so miserable. Everybody, so obviously, having started this YouTube channel, people know at work I'm a huge Packer fan. So everybody's coming up to me and they're like, "How you doing, bud? Are you doing okay?" Like patting my shoulder. "You gonna be okay, big guy?" I'm like, I was okay. I think it comes with age, Big B. I think it comes with age. Just here's a little bit of experience from a 31. You guys got my age now. From a 31-year-old who's been through a couple of playoff losses through the last decade. It gets easier. It does get easier. Now, it doesn't get to the point where you're a Minnesota Viking fan and you just know that things will eventually go wrong and you will never win yourself a Super Bowl. At least we have the knowledge that we eventually will get that Lombardi trophy back to Green Bay. But it gets easier. They don't sting so much the more times you feel it. It's kind of like getting a broken heart. Melanie chiming in. Nice to see you in here, Melanie. Hello, I'm a Packers fan. Win or lose, always a Packer fan. Colin, you had school. It was good question. Great point, Colin. What are you doing at school today? You're not throwing a fast one by me, Big B. You go to some kind of private school where they don't celebrate Martin Luther King Day? Now you have to explain yourself. By the way, I've switched it up from beer. I'm having a little bit of a stiffer drink tonight, a Southern and Coke, mainly because that's all I had in my my little liquor cabinet. But I didn't want to do a beer tonight. I figured I'd toughen it up a little bit, make it a little bit stronger, a little stiffer. Melanie says, I was so upset about the game last night, but at least we made it to the playoffs and we were the NFC North champions, so I'm happy and proud of them. Go Pack, go. Yeah, we swept that's the thing that probably pissed me off more about anything when it came to these Vikings fans and Bears fans coming out of the woodwork, is that we swept them. They didn't even get a win on us this year, and they just felt like they could just talk all the crap in the world. So there you go. Big B goes to a private school. We learned a little bit about Big B today. So let's talk a little bit about the future of Green Bay. So I'm going to throw up on the screen here because I'm learning things. I'm learning some technologies and such. So we got ourselves some free agents coming up on the board here. So for all your viewing pleasure here, some big names across the board when it comes to our free agents list. So obviously Brian Bulaga, Mason Crosby, Blake Martinez, these are all starters and big proponents of our team. Geronimo Allison is a free agent. Tyler Irvin, I see, he was a guy we picked up midway through the season. I would expect him to come back. Kyler Fackrell. Mercedes Lewis, if you guys maybe watched his interview, post game or locker room interview today, he definitely wants to come back. He feels like he can still play. He wants to play again with the Packers. He felt like his he got into a flow when it came to LaFleur's system and definitely wants to come back. You look at Tramon Williams. What are we going to do with Tramon Williams? Alan Lazard will definitely be back. Jake Kumaro. I mean, these are some big names across the board for free agents, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the next couple of weeks shake out for Brian Gutekunst and the front office, and who they decide to bring back, and how many guys we decide to keep on our roster. You kind of look at our wide receiver group. So you're looking at I'm just looking at Gmo, and I'm looking at Jake Humro. Those are kind of the two, I guess, two big names on the wide receiving group. But we definitely have to figure out what's going on at wide receiver in the very near future. We got to figure out what's going on at wide receiver, because Adams looked great once again. If we pull up Adams' stats from last night, he had himself a great game. 9 receptions, 138 yards. Did not find himself in the end zone, but he had that 65-yard catch. He had 11 targets, so he caught 9 of them. This is a guy that obviously is continuing to get better. He might not have had the statistical season in 2019 like he had last year, but just to see how they utilized him, and that's something that LaFleur is definitely going to have to dive into more, is figuring out how to get him more involved in the game plan. But if we can find a true number 2 wide receiver, and that's going to go either through free agency or it's going to come through the draft. We picked up some guys for future reserve that came from the Canadian Football League. I think that competition is going to be easily. I'm already starting to think about OTAs and spring training and all that stuff. The wide receiving competition is going to be absolutely crucial for the Green Bay Packers. We cannot go into the 2020 season with question marks at the wide receiving group. Pull this thing back up again. Other names that kind of pop up. So Mason Crosby, he is a free agent. Obviously, he's on this list. Player that I expect to come back. He was coming off of a $4 million a year contract. The guy kicked 90%. Or made 90% of his field goals this year, so I expect them to come back and sign him. Now, with Mason Crosby, he was obviously in a little bit of a kicking competition with Sam Ficken, and it was going back and forth. And I think for me personally, what gave Mason Crosby the nod was just the fact that he has some ice in his veins. You know that you can trust him when you go out there with 2 seconds left in the game, that he can make the game-winning field goal, and he did that twice against Detroit this year. I think that's an intangible asset that you find that's really hard to find in kickers. Just ask the Chicago Bears if you question that whatsoever. So I would expect them to bring Mercedes Lewis back. As far as Brian Bulaga, I would expect them to bring back Brian Bulaga as well. Now, this one is a little bit of a surprise to me even saying that, because he is getting up there in age, and I kind of figured that this would be his last season, but they don't really have a dependable backup behind him. Jared Valdir won't be back on the Packers roster. He was retired up until about 6 weeks ago, so I would not expect that to be a true option unless he just loved the Packers so much and wants to give it another full year out there at right tackle. But Bakhtiari talked about this too. He said it would be weird to have someone out on the other tackle. He wants to see Bulaga come back. I would like to see Bulaga come back too. He had himself a really solid year. For the most part, yes, he had injuries that popped up, but it didn't prevent him from missing really a whole lot of time. And Alex Light, just maybe he'll take another step in the offseason, but I don't know if Alex Light is the true answer for us along the right tackle side of things. I'd expect Danny Vitale to come back, but I'm not really sure in what capacity. They did not use him quite like we thought they would use him. He was like the guy all throughout preseason, and he just kind of was a secondary thought. And then I think the other name that pops up is going to be Tramon Williams. Now, Tramon Williams, God, I love that guy. I mean, it's another guy, 36 years old, end of his contract. But what do we do at cornerback? I mean, we only have so many draft picks in the draft. I think I don't have that little slide for you guys to kind of feast your eyes on at this point, but I think we have 8 picks, 7 or 8 picks. I think we got one from Oakland for trading away Trevor Davis, and that's just a 6th-round pick. But they got to figure out an answer for cornerback, because obviously you have Jair Alexander, who, by the way, did break his thumb in yesterday's game. So if we would have gone on to the Super Bowl, more than likely Alexander would have been absent, and that would have been a very dangerous equation against the Patrick Mahomes offense. But I think you got to maybe consider bringing Tramon Williams back for one more year. There's a lot of question marks, and there's only so much cap room. Kenny Clark is on his 5th-year option coming into the offseason. That's a guy that I think You have to probably start to pay him some money. I don't think you want to ride out that 5th year. It's kind of disrespectful when you know that he's a future for you at the nose tackle position, the defensive line. But with Tramon Williams, I think we got to look at wide receiver, and we're going to be. I think we're the number 30th pick in the NFL draft. All season long, you guys were asking me who do we take in the first round, and a lot of you guys are saying wide receiver in the first round. I didn't want to take a wide receiver if it was going to be 24 or lower for a pick, but at pick number 30, it's a deep wide receiving class for college football and the draft, but I would like to take a wide receiver at that 30th pick, and I think Rodgers would appreciate that as well. So the last name on this list that I want to talk about and has to be Blake Martinez. Love me some Blake Martinez, and if you guys get some time, or if you haven't watched it already, I know some of you are really struggling with the case of the Mondays today after that NFC loss, but if you guys do get yourself some time, watch Blake Martinez locker room interview. It's about 2.5 minutes long, and most specifically, watch the last minute of it. He gets asked a question as far as his thoughts on the season and thoughts on the team, and he was holding back tears. He was very emotional. He was saying it was one of the best group of guys he's ever played with. The guy his heart was feeling it, and say what you will, I think we need to look at another linebacker to complement Blake Martinez, but his leadership abilities are intangible. His tackling abilities are intangible. Yes, he's not the fastest. Yes, he's not the hardest hitting, but I think he's a guy that you can re-sign on a relatively cheap contract and keep him in Green Bay. And me personally, I would like to see Blake Martinez come back. But as far as this list is concerned, I mean, you're looking at probably Jared Valdir is going to be gone. Kyler Fackrell maybe goes away as well. B.J. Goodson probably goes away. Will Redmond is on the chopping block. Chandon Sullivan had a pretty solid season, but he's probably on the chopping block as well. Robert Tonyan will more than likely be back because that will probably segue me into my next conversation. And then Malcolm Johnson, Tyler Lancaster, these guys are somewhat disposable. But it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how this entire thing shakes out for us 100%. Colin says, praying for Lewis to get signed back. I'm right there with you. Number one Pack says, I say this, I am proud of this season. We won our division. We went all the way to the championship. I might have read that one already. I think I'm reading up for some reason. Every game I have been to watch, we have lost, including the 49ers. Colin B, you said first half. Did you end up leaving at halftime? Did you see that video of the Kansas City Chiefs guy leaving the stadium when they were down 24-0 against the Houston Texans, and he left the stadium, and obviously Kansas City put up 51 points, and it was a crazy comeback. I believe in superstitions. I have superstitions, obviously, myself. I think all Packers fans or all crazy football fans do, but I don't think I would take myself out of the stadium by any. I mean, those are cheap tickets. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to live that thing out. Big B says, I have a feeling that we will trade up in the draft. I agree with you. That's a great point. 100%. I think first off, Gutekunst has done an absolutely phenomenal job. I don't think any of you guys will disagree about that. We've talked about that a lot on the show. Just the fact of the draft classes that he's had, what he's done in free agency, what he's been able to do throughout the season. I think they are well aware of the window with Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's probably about a 5-year window. I think we got about 5 more seasons left of Aaron Rodgers. That would put him to be about 41, 42. And I think you have to maybe start to make some moves and sacrifice your extended future for some immediate results and some immediate gratification. I agree that 30th pick isn't the greatest. It's one of the downsides of having a 13-3 year and then falling short of the Super Bowl is that you get that high draft pick. It will all depend on who the best available player is. I think you can probably get a solid quality wide receiver with the number 30th pick, but at the same time to draft up and maybe get the 20th slot or the upper teens, whatever the case may be, I would not be surprised one bit if they traded up. Colin B says, I'm going to watch that. Have a good day. See you another time. Salute. All right. So Colin signed off so you could go watch Blake Martinez cry in the locker room. It gets pretty emotional. But so outside of the free agency side of things, there is one player who's not a free agent that had himself a tweet today that we will run through. So good old Jimmy Graham posted on his Twitter account today, and no reports of him retiring, but if you guys take a look at his tweet from today, this becomes harder every time you see others raise that trophy. I'm blessed and proud of these guys for battling to prove a lot of people wrong. Thank you for sticking by me for 10 years. I have given everything I have in the pursuit of a ring. I am in your debt for believing in me. And then it shows him with that peace sign underneath in the picture. Not entirely sure how to take this. Is he retiring? Maybe. Does he realize that maybe he's lost a step? He's not the dominant force. Once again, he had a pretty solid game yesterday against the San Francisco 49ers. He had 4 receptions for 59 yards. He had that 42-yard pass that fell just inches shy of the end zone. At least that's what they decided to review it as. If Jimmy Graham can play like he did against Seattle and San Francisco, and he could kind of duplicate that for 19, 20 weeks on a way to a Super Bowl, that's a guy that I would be willing to bring back and more than happy to pay $10 million a year. But there's just no guarantee that he's going to be that type of player next season. And when you look at some of the free agents that we just ran over, and you look at Kenny Clark, and you look at the need to maybe bring in some more talent from free agency, I think you have to kind of look past Jimmy Graham as a guy that you could continue to pay money for. Look at Sternberger. He had himself a touchdown last night against the Niners. That guy has gotten a lot of playing time the last couple of weeks, and I think he will kind of emerge as Green Bay's tight end option. He's not only a great route runner and a catcher, but he's a blocker too. They line him up in the backfield, actually kind of in that fullback position, blocking for Aaron Jones. I think you have Sternberger, I think you have Tanyan, and I think you bring back Mercedes Lewis, and then maybe you draft another tight end, or maybe just roll with those 3 and call yourself good at the tight end position. So Colin B's back from watching the Blake Martinez video from the looks of it. Oh my God, I just went and tried to watch that, too emotional, but the comment section was ruthless, blaming him for the loss and saying to cut him. Yeah, there's a lot of haters with Blake Martinez. A lot of haters for Blake Martinez, but I am not one of them. I'm not one of them. I think he's a great player. I don't think he's the best linebacker in the NFL. I don't think he has to be. I think that he could use some help because, quite frankly, outside of Blake Martinez, you don't see Oren Burks, you don't see B.J. Goodson, you don't see Kyler Fackrell. I mean, Kyler Fackrell had himself a sack last night, but that was I think it was the first one of the year, I think is what they threw up on the screen. He needs some help. It can't all lay on Blake's shoulders, and he is the quarterback of the defense. He's taken on that role. That's a guy that I think you bring back. Snow is tuning in. Nice to see you, man. Jimmy Graham needs to go. Wish him luck. Hate to do it. Such a great guy, but we need a much better option. Or I threw much in there, but we need a better option at tight end. Yeah, I think we pigeonholed ourselves into a position, and it was you felt like you had to play him, you had to start him, you had to use him in the offense, but I think it made our offense weaker by having Jimmy Graham on our roster because we were forced to play him and maybe not put in Sternberger as much, or maybe not use Tanyan as much. So I like what we have at depth at tight end, but I agree with you. I don't think that's a guy that you bring back, and hopefully he retires so he can kind of part ways with the organization and doesn't have to be someone that ends up on a different team or we cut and there's sour feelings there or whatever the case may be. Snowwiz doesn't understand the Martinez head, and Big B says I don't want to see Summers and Burks next year. To be honest, I want to see more of Summers. I'm not entirely sold on Oren Burks. I would like to see Summers, though. I really loved his college football highlight reel. I think that he was a guy that obviously was inactive just because of roster constraints, and then they used him on special teams occasionally. But Summers, that guy's a football player. He's the Bobby Boucher of tackling people and hitting people. So I would like to see him come back. I think, well, obviously he will come back. I mean, he's going to be on his second year. He's on a rookie contract. He's a guy you keep on the roster. But I'm going to be interested to see if he can make a leap or a jump now that he's had one full year in the NFL. Blake is, bite my tongue. Blake is such a nice guy. I don't get the hate. I'm right there with you. My wife actually couldn't even watch that clip. She got emotional herself. She's a big Blake Martinez fan. Probably because he's a good-looking guy. And that's kind of how women roll. If they're good-looking football players, she's right on board with it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to touch upon on this particular video. I mean, I have to look forward to the future. I only got 10 of you guys in the room, but you guys are, quite frankly, my diehard, my faithful. I will be taking a little bit of a sabbatical, but I'm not going to do it quite yet. I'm still trying to figure out what I would want to post on Friday for a video, if I want to do like a season recap video or not. We do need to do the drawing at some point, so I plan on doing the drawing for the canvas behind me. I'm thinking about doing that on a live Q&A the day after the Super Bowl, so we can kind of talk about the Super Bowl game, and then we will give this bad boy away. So if you are tuning in, these live ones are a little bit weird because not a lot of people click on them after the fact, but if you're tuning in and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. You'll get yourself entered for a chance to win this. And then, but yeah, I think once the Super Bowl ends, I'm going to take myself, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break from the YouTube world until the NFL draft rolls around, and then I'll do a little bit of coverage leading into it, a little bit of coverage coming out of it, and then there's some OTAs that take place. And then there's a break there in the summer. So I think, there'll probably be, 10, 15 videos between now and the start of training camp. But I want to do some new things to the channel. I want to maybe update the set a little bit. I want to change some of the formatting of how I do my videos and some of the techniques and whatnot, I guess. Just improve it. I'm at 906 for subscribers. And I want that thing to grow, right? I think the more people we can get in here and talk about the games and whatnot, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So let's go back to the comments section real quick. Pause. You just called him hot. Yeah, it's perfectly fine when one heterosexual guy calls another heterosexual guy hot. There's nothing wrong with that, guys. It's 2020. Let's move on. Let's move past it. He's a good-looking guy. So is Matt LaFleur. Super good-looking guy. Yeah, I know the ladies. I know Melanie agrees with me out there in California. I know she knows what's up. Big B, a.k.a. you will just give it to me. So Big B wants the canvas. You definitely have supported the channel where you deserve your name in the drawing. 100%. I might put two. I'll put two in there for you. But I'll say I will. Yes, Blake is a great guy. I really like him. That's from Melanie. If you take too much time off, it may hurt you, man. Well, that's all right. I'll build it back up. I mean, it is what it is. It's not that I'm going to just completely forget about it, but there's things I also want to improve upon. I appreciate you looking. I mean, Gridiron Blitz, I believe you are I believe you're the Lions fan of the Pour Another group. And you've been looking out for me. You commented on my last video about the 10,000 subscribers, only need 1,000. Obviously, this is something that I want to grow, but at the same time, it has been it's been a year. I'm going to take a little bit of time and give some attention to my wife and my family. I think that's important to do. If I lose some subscribers or I take a little bit of a drop as far as the YouTube channel is concerned. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world. I obviously want to grow this thing. I want it to be a full-time gig at some point, but there's priorities. You got to balance it, work-life balance, and I'm not going away by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll take my foot off the gas just a little bit. Just take it off a little bit because I'd love to get to a point where I can post content, every day. That will eventually be something. Probably not in the next year, but that's definitely an area where I see this going, is where it's going to be everyday content, and I want to put good content out there. I want it to just be something, and it's an algorithm thing is what you're saying. It'll be fun. If it's an algorithm thing, then I'll be the first to tell you that I probably messed up the algorithm somewhere, because I went from like 1,000 views, 800 to 1,200 views on a pretty consistent basis to like 200 views on my Final Thoughts video. So I might have already screwed the algorithm up, and maybe I need to do like a reset and really give the algorithm something to think about. I don't know. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. 100%. 100%. But yeah, looking back on the season, guys, I mean, a lot of you guys were here at the beginning of the conversation. Obviously, did not end the way we wanted it to end, but it was a fun year. And I think I'll say it right now. It's been said before, but I'll say it again. I don't think the Packers will be a 13-3 team next year. We'll wait till the schedule release comes out, and we'll dive into that. I'll give you what I think our true schedule will be, or what my predictions are at that point. But I think we will have an overall better team. This will be just a more rounded, well-rounded team. I think they will fill in the holes where they need to fill in the holes. And I think they'll be geared up to make another strong. And the thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be looking to bounce back as far as having another successful season. I think you look at the Cowboys. I think they're going to be motivated to get themselves back in the playoffs. You're going to obviously see the Vikings milking what they have from Kirk Cousins and fighting to get back in the playoffs. Will the Bears or the Lions continue to struggle next year, or will they figure out a way to be better themselves? You look at the Rams, who were in the Super Bowl just a year ago, missing the playoffs. Will they bounce back? You look at the Panthers and the changes out there. I don't think the Panthers will do a whole lot. And then the Eagles. The Eagles were a team that struggled with injuries all year and fell short of the playoffs. So there's so many moving parts. The NFC is, and then Seattle. Let's not forget about Seattle. There's so many good teams. That's probably the most frustrating thing about the loss yesterday, is that we managed to the minefield of talent in the NFC conference, and fell short, and now we have to go through that minefield again next year, and start from square one game at a time, 1 week at a time, and go from there. Big B, I'm right there with you. I'm not really sure where Podcast 1919 is. I have an address for him because he got me some fan mail. So no tuning in right now. Maybe he's having a rough day too. I can't blame anybody for having themselves a rough day today. Jimmy G claps when airplanes land. I don't know what that means. Buzzy for you too. There's a new one. What's up, man? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. I don't think I've taken a question for you. What are your thoughts on Mike Pettine's future? Thank you. Great question. Glad you brought this one up. I thought about this one all morning. Mike Pettine is really the only coach that Matt LaFleur did not implement into the coaching staff. So he carried over from Mike McCarthy. He was only 1 year of Mike McCarthy's system. So really, I mean, did he carry over in a way? Yes, but Mike Pettine's just kind of Mike Pettine. The defensive coordinator thing's real interesting to me because I like Mike Pettine. I think that he's a great defensive coordinator. I think that you look at what you've heard from Za'Darius and Preston and Tremont and Blake and those guys in the locker room. They respect Pettine. They play for him. They like his schemes. It's a good culture. It's a good thing they got going there. As far as his future, it's a 50-50 in my mind. It's going to be really interesting. You listen to Matt LaFleur's press conference last night directly after the game. Green Bay knew that San Francisco was going to run the ball and that they wanted to run the ball. And they gave up 240 yards to a single guy, or 220 yards to a single guy with 4 touchdowns. And so that is inexcusable. When you know a defense or an offense is going to run the ball, and that is part of their game plan, and you can't stop it, there has to be consequences for your actions or lack of actions from the defensive side of things. So that's definitely an area where they're going to have to take a hard look and figure out, is there anyone better? That's I think what it boils down to. I mean, you look at an up-and-coming defensive coordinator like Robert Saleh in the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, that guy seems like he's got it figured out. I mean, he's got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. That doesn't hurt. But he seems like he's got his guys gang tackling and playing hard and fast and motivated, and they looked that way the entire season. It wasn't just 2 times that we played them. That defense was on a different level all year with their intensity and the way that they went out there and took care of business. If they're going to get rid of a Pettine, you have to assume that they have someone else in mind to take over that role. I don't think you necessarily, this close NFC Championship, first season with Matt LaFleur. You completely want to reinvent the wheel on the defensive side of the ball. So if I'm a betting man, I'll give it 51% that we keep him, 49% that we don't, but I would expect that we would carry Pettine one more year, given everything that I essentially just ran over. I love that question. I'm glad you brought that up. I would have completely forgot about it, but it was something that I was thinking about while I was drinking my coffee this morning and just kind of thinking about just it went all over Facebook that our last 6-7 playoff losses all were defensive related on us not being able to stay in the game. So definitely, defense wins championships. They have to figure that side of it out for sure. Snowwiz says we should be playing the NFC and AFC South plus Saints and Eagles. I can see us going 12-4, maybe 13-3 with some help. Big B, I don't know if you talked about this, but thoughts on Bobby Dillon in the Hall of Fame? I don't have a whole lot of thoughts about Bobby Dillon going in the Hall of Fame. I follow that stuff a little bit, but not to a point where I really have a whole lot of input on it, so I'm gonna probably not comment, or because I just really don't have a whole lot to say about it. Sorry, Big B. Dr. Aiden, thank you. You are the best. Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. PackFan12, we should hire Chris Richard if he's available. I know nothing about Chris Richard, so I'll have to do a little bit of digging. It's really, I wish some of this was a little bit more in the moment, like you guys. I could type back to you. All right, let's look it up. Why don't we just look it up? That's what the internet's for, right? Richard. LSU. College, huh? So USC, first headline on here, USC has contacted Chris Richard about defensive coordinator position. So he's looks like he's part of the Dallas Cowboys. Is that right? Former Seahawks defensive coordinator. I recognize the face on him. Yeah, so Seahawks defensive coordinator for the previous 3 seasons after spending 5 seasons coaching defensive backs. So that's your pick, huh? Guy from Dallas. We'll take one of those Dallas. They can have Mike McCarthy. We'll take one of their defensive coordinators. Like I said, the more I digest and kind of entertain the idea of a different defensive coordinator, honestly, it's happening right now. Conveying it to you as it's happening, I'm not a fan of it. I think you hang on to Pettine one more season. There's so much to like about the defense. Yeah, we gave up big plays here and there, but I think the needle's pointing up with our defensive side. I don't think you want to mess with that culture a whole lot. Especially, you had Zadarius and Preston, who were their first season with Pettine and getting acclimated to that. We saw what these guys are able to do going from year 1 to year 2 under Mike Pettina's system. To give it another year, I say is probably my vote on it. But speaking of Preston and Zadarius Smith, kudos to the San Francisco 49ers. They absolutely took those guys out of the game plan 100%. You didn't hear their names hardly ever. There was a couple runs where Zadarius and Kenny Clark got up there very early on, but their game plan I guess Garoppolo has to throw the ball if you're going to have pass rushers that make a difference, so that's probably a big part of it too. But they did a really good job of keeping the ball. Essentially, it was keep it away from Preston and Zadarius Smith. Our 2 biggest forces on defense were completely taken out of the game yesterday against the Niners, and that becomes a problem. That's where you have to find some more talent and more depth along that rest of that team, and that's areas where we have to look at it. Buzzy, for you, I don't think we have players for Pettine's system. We need more defensive linemen and linebackers for him. Well, I would love to get to a point like the Niners are at, where you can essentially just have like 4 or 5 guys on the defensive line that can just bull rush and get to the quarterback at any given time. And then when they employ 7 guys in their front, defensive rush, it's absolutely just wreck. It's a problems left and right. So we'll see. Another offseason. Let's see if they got to continue to build pieces around this entire team. You just can't do it overnight. What they've been able to do with the pieces they've had, though, is pretty impressive. So we're about 45 minutes into it. A few of you guys hanging out in here. Keeps kind of bouncing up between 8 and 10 viewers or so. I've hardly touched my drink. You guys got anything else you want to talk about? I don't really have a whole lot else I want to talk about. I kind of came into the night wanting to leave it up to the comment section, see kind of where your guys' heads were at with the season. I filled you in on what I thought as far as, free agents and some of the performances from yesterday. As I've said over and over and over, this one feels a little bit different. This loss obviously stings, but needle's pointing up, and you got to love the direction that the team's going in. It's where you have to leave it. It's not going to be too long until the draft is around the corner, and then we start talking about OTAs and the pieces, and free agency opens up, and then summer. I mean, I brought that up to my coworkers today. It's like, now that the football season is over, the proverbial football season is over because we're Packer fans, you can go ahead and bring on summer. It's probably the next thing that I can look forward to is just warmer weather. And that doesn't count for you people in California and Arizona. This is a Wisconsin thing. I need some warm weather. I'm definitely sick of winter at this point. Super Bowl champs next year. Any thoughts on these guys we picked up from the CFL? I have pretty high hopes on the wide receiver they picked up from the CFL. I'm trying to think about what his name is. It's kind of a hard one to pronounce. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. It starts with a B. He had some great stats in college football last season. I think he had 1,400 yards. Double digits and touchdowns. I think that's a good weapon that you're going to see kind of come into the rotation. I mean, if he can even prove to be a solid number 3 option or a 4 option at wide receiver, that's going to bode well for the Green Bay Packers. I would definitely be shocked to see Kumaro come back. I'd be shocked to see Allison come back. I think St. Brown, I think that's a name that people forgot about. He's on the season-ending injury reserve, so he's going to be bouncing back. He's still on his rookie contract. See if we can get something out of him. But yeah, the guy that we had, the wide receiver that we got from the CFL has some really good statistics and had himself a really good season. And we'll see if it translates to the NFL. I mean, you're playing against lesser opponents, but at the same time, speed and catching the ball and scoring touchdowns, if you can do that at any level, it usually can translate pretty well when you have a quarterback like number 12 throwing you the ball as well. If you were to make a huge trade for someone, who would it be and why? Well, what do we have out there? I mean, what do we got for, well, I guess we're talking trades. We're not talking about free agent signings. So if I'm going to trade for someone, the name that comes to mind is Odell Beckham Jr. It's the one name that comes to mind for someone that I would trade for. Now, I don't think we can afford the guy, but and his attitude is a little bit suspect from here to there. But you find that you can bring a guy like that to Green Bay, and maybe he can shapen up his attitude to an extent. That would probably be a guy that I would bring or trade for. I don't know what you'd trade away or how much you'd want to pay the guy, but to see him and Devontae Adams at your wide receiving group, I think is hands down would be one hell of a deadly combination. When it comes to other players that I would trade for, I'd like for them, I mean, we should probably go out there and find ourselves another cornerback in free agency. If you're not going to hang on to Tramon Williams, and there's a handful of talented cornerbacks out there that you could steal from. But that OBJ is the one that comes to mind as far as someone that I would trade for. Melanie, I think that we had a great season. I think this will probably have a good season next year. Dude was a beast in CFL. You're talking about Reggie Biggleton. And then Snowwiz says he'd be a great replacement for Gmo. And that's the thing. Like I said, I think Gmo goes away. I think Kumaro goes away. I think Ryan Grant goes away for a wide receiver. It's gonna be a different roster. I think that sucks, right? We get invested in these guys. Some of you even buy jerseys and they only stick around for one. I'm looking over at my Jared Cook jersey laying on the floor over there. You get invested in these guys and the teams and the culture, and it's just been a fun team. And you can see it on all these guys' faces. They didn't want it to end. They didn't think it was going to end. Rodgers was saying, the 2010 team that went on to win the Super Bowl was not the most talented team that he's ever played with, but there was something special about the group of guys, and they had this sense that they could do anything and they could overcome anything. And he had that same feeling with this group of guys he had this year. and it almost felt like it was fate or inevitable that they would go on to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl just with the culture and the feeling of that locker room. So a lot of that stuff's going to be thrown on its head, but I also anticipate that these guys come back hungrier than ever. I don't think they look at that first season as any sort of luck or a one-off sort of scenario. You're going to have a second-year head coach at that point. You're going to have a lot of these guys coming into the systems with a better grasp of it. And I think, like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun. I got chills. I didn't think I'd get chills tonight thinking about anything, but I got some chills just thinking about what could possibly be with this team right now. So I think I am going to wrap up the video for tonight. Follow me on Twitter. If you guys haven't followed me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, whatever the case is. I gotta get those accounts up there a little bit, and I'll keep you posted. As for now, I think we will plan on going live again next Monday, just to kind of keep things flowing. Maybe we'll have some Packer news throughout the week that we can talk about, and then of course the Super Bowl is 2 weeks away. But as for now, I mean, guys, cheer up. Season's over, but it's not the end of the world. We still have number 12. We still have a bright young coach. We still have talented litter all over our team. It will be okay. We will get through this. It happens. You're not going to win every year, and I definitely like our odds than a lot better than 26 other teams in the NFL. So things are looking good. It was a great season. We will not put a complete wrap on the season yet, but until next time, guys, I will see you all on the internet. Have yourself a great night, and thanks for checking out the stream.